There is a strange moment that can happen in the most ordinary place. You are brushing your teeth, or walking to the kitchen, or pretending to read an email for the third time. And suddenly you notice yourself. Not just your body, not just your thoughts. You notice that there is someone in here having the experience. Most of the time, this feels so normal that we forget how bizarre it is. A brain made of cells, chemicals, electricity, blood, fat, and salt somehow creates a private movie. It has colors, sounds, memories, feelings, a narrator, and occasionally a very bad song stuck on repeat. So here is the uncomfortable question. What if consciousness is not the main point of the brain? What if the feeling of being you is something the brain accidentally makes while doing other jobs? The first clue is that the brain is not really built like a throne room for one tiny ruler. It is more like a city at rush hour. Vision is doing one thing. Hearing is doing another. Memory is rummaging through old boxes. Emotions are changing the lighting. Your body is sending messages about hunger, balance, breath, pain, warmth, and whether your left sock has become morally unacceptable. Somehow, from all of that, you get one smooth experience. You do not feel 1,000 systems arguing. You feel like one person. That unity may be less like a fact and more like a useful illusion. Think about vision. It feels as if your eyes are simply showing you the world, but your brain is doing a lot of editing. It fills gaps. It corrects color. It stabilizes motion. It guesses depth. It chooses what to ignore. That is why optical illusions work. The illusion is not your eyes failing like cheap cameras. It is your brain making its best guess and sometimes getting caught in the act. Most of the time, that guess is good enough to help you walk across a room without apologizing to a table. But it means the world you experience is not a raw feed. It is a constructed version of reality. Now take that idea and make it more personal. What if the brain does not only construct the world outside you? What if it also constructs the person inside it? The self may be a model, not fake in the sense that it does not matter. Models can be extremely useful. A map is not the city, but good luck finding your hotel without one. Your brain needs a model of your body, your memories, your goals, your social role, your pain, your hunger, your plans, and your place in the room. Put those models together and it starts to feel like me. That may be consciousness, not a magic spotlight, but a practical dashboard. Dreams make this even stranger. Every night your brain can build a world with no outside world required. You can run through a school you have not attended in 20 years, while being late for a test in a class that does not exist, carrying a sandwich that somehow feels important. And inside the dream, it usually makes sense. Your brain creates the scenery, the characters, the danger, the emotions, and the version of you who is worried about the sandwich. Then you wake up and realize the whole thing was generated internally. But while it was happening, it was experience. That should make us a little suspicious about waking life too. Not because waking life is fake, but because the brain is clearly capable of turning internal activity into a lived world. The next clue is timing. You feel as if your conscious mind decides things first. I choose to lift my hand. I choose what to say. I choose whether to open one more video, which is obviously for research and not because the algorithm has adopted me. But experiments in neuroscience have made this messy. Sometimes the brain shows signs of preparing an action before a person reports consciously deciding to act. That does not mean free will is solved or dead. Anyone who says this is simple is probably selling a very confident book. But it does suggest consciousness may not always be the commander. Sometimes it may be the press secretary. The brain acts and consciousness explains. You can see the same thing in everyday life. You reach for your phone before you know why. You dislike someone before you can explain the reason. You make a choice, then build a very respectable story about it afterward. Humans are not lying when we do this. We are interpreting ourselves. The brain is full of causes we do not feel directly. Hormones, memories, habits, fear, hunger, status, sleep, old injuries, tiny preferences, and the general tragedy of needing lunch all push from underneath. Consciousness receives the result and tries to make it coherent. It says, "Here is why I did that." Sometimes it is right. Sometimes it is doing public relations for a committee it has never fully met. This is where the provocative idea begins. Maybe consciousness is not a separate thing floating above the brain. Maybe it is what happens when a prediction machine becomes complicated enough to model the world, model the body, model other people, and then model itself doing all of that. The brain predicts what will happen next. It predicts what your body needs. It predicts what other people might think. Then, at some point, the system includes itself in the prediction, and a strange loop appears. A model of the world contains a model of you, and the model of you looks back at the world. That loop may be where the feeling of I am here comes from. The grounded answer is less dramatic, but probably deeper. Consciousness is not just one thing. It may be many processes working together: attention, memory, body awareness, perception, emotion, language, and the ability to report what is happening. Different theories explain different parts. Some scientists think consciousness appears when information becomes widely shared across the brain. Some focus on prediction and body signals. Some focus on attention. Some think we are still missing a major piece. That is worth saying clearly. Nobody has fully solved consciousness. If they had, philosophers would have either celebrated or found a more annoying question within 7 minutes. But the accident idea does not mean consciousness is worthless. Accidents can become useful. Feathers may have begun for warmth and later helped with flight. A structure can appear for one reason and become important for another. Maybe consciousness began as a side effect of systems built for perception, prediction, social life, and control. Then it became powerful, because once a brain can notice itself, it can reflect, it can regret, it can imagine being different tomorrow. It can tell stories, make promises, feel guilt, laugh at itself, and ask why there is a universe instead of just quietly eating berries. That is not a small accident. So maybe consciousness is not the driver sitting above the brain. Maybe it is the brain's living summary of itself. A story the system tells so it can coordinate its body, memories, choices, and future. And yes, maybe the story is incomplete. Maybe it arrives late. Maybe it edits the truth. Maybe it sometimes pretends to be in charge of things that already started downstairs. But it is still the place where pain matters, beauty appears, love feels real, and questions become possible. That is the strange part. Even if consciousness began as an accident, it became the only part of the universe we know from the inside. So what do you think? Are you controlling your mind or watching it explain itself?